The alarm bells rang across every military base on Earth at exactly 14:23 Greenwich Mean Time. Admiral Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee when the red lights started flashing on the bridge of the UES Defiance. His weathered hands set down the mug as he watched the main screen light up with warnings. "Sir, we have massive contacts appearing near Luna," shouted Communications Officer Lisa Bell from her station. Her voice cracked with fear as she read the incoming data. 317 ships, sir. They're huge." Morrison walked to the viewing window and looked out into space. At first he saw nothing but stars and the familiar sight of Earth's moon. Then the ships appeared. They came out of nowhere, like ghosts becoming solid. One moment empty space, the next moment filled with the largest vessels he had ever seen. The alien ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. They looked like they were made of crystal and metal twisted together. Each ship was the size of a small city. They glowed with purple and blue lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ships arranged themselves in perfect patterns around the moon, like pieces on a chessboard. "Are they talking to us?" Morrison asked. Lisa Bell pressed her earpiece closer and listened. Her face went pale. "Yes, sir. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The message is simple. They say surrender or be cleansed." Morrison felt his stomach drop. He had been a military man for 30 years. He had fought in 3 wars and commanded fleets in space for the last decade, but he had never seen anything like this. The ships were so large they blocked out stars. Their energy readings were off the charts. "Get me the president," Morrison said, "and contact all fleet commanders. Tell them to prepare for battle stations." On the planet below, President Helen Carter was in an emergency meeting with her advisors. The room was full of generals, scientists, and politicians all talking at once. Everyone was scared, but they were trying not to show it. "What do we know about them?" the president asked. Dr. Amy Rodriguez, Earth's top expert on alien life, stood up with a tablet in her hands. She was young for such an important job, but she was brilliant. "We've been analyzing their ships for the past hour. Their technology is far beyond ours. Their energy shields could stop our nuclear weapons. Their hull materials are unknown to us." "What do they want?" asked General Frank Cole, the head of Earth's armies. "They want us to surrender," Rodriguez said quietly. "Or they will cleanse us. I think that means they will kill everyone." The room went silent. Outside the windows of the White House, people were starting to panic in the streets. News reports were showing the alien fleet on every channel. Some people were praying. Others were running. Most were just staring at their televisions in shock. Captain Pete Davis was already in space when the aliens arrived. He commanded a squadron of 12 fighter ships on patrol near Mars. When the emergency signal came through, he ordered his pilots to return to Earth immediately. "Captain, what are those things?" asked Lieutenant Nancy Green over the radio. She was his youngest pilot, fresh out of the academy. "I don't know, Nancy," Davis replied. "But we're going to find out." As they flew closer to Earth, the alien ships grew larger and larger. Davis had flown past asteroids smaller than these vessels. The closest ship was covered in spikes and curves that hurt to look at. Strange symbols glowed along its sides and colors that seemed to shift and change. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Bob Harris. "How many people could fit in one of those ships?" Davis was wondering the same thing. If each ship held 1,000 soldiers, they were looking at over 300,000 enemies. If they held 10,000 each, the numbers became impossible to think about. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Morrison was getting reports from around the world. Every major city was in panic. The stock markets had crashed. Airports were jammed with people trying to flee, but there was nowhere to go. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Tom Murphy from the sensor station. "The alien ships are moving. They're entering Earth's atmosphere." Morrison watched as dozens of the crystal ships left the main fleet and descended toward the planet. They moved slowly, like they had all the time in the world. They seemed to be heading for the biggest cities. "All ships, battle formation," Morrison ordered. "We're going to meet them." The human fleet was impressive by Earth standards. 50 warships, each armed with the best weapons humanity could build. They had railguns that could punch through steel, lasers that could cut through rock and nuclear missiles that could level mountains. But compared to the alien vessels, they looked like toys. Dr. Rodriguez was still in the emergency meeting when the first alien ship appeared over Washington, D.C. It was enormous, casting a shadow over half the city. The ship just hung there in the sky, not moving, not attacking, just waiting. "They're studying us," Rodriguez said, like scientists looking at insects. On his fighter, Captain Davis got close enough to see the alien ship's surface in detail. The hull was covered in strange patterns that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them. Windows or sensors dotted the surface, glowing with that shifting light. Suddenly his radio crackled with a new voice. It was deep and cold, speaking English with a strange accent. "Little creatures," the voice said. "We are the Draconians. We have conquered 47 worlds. Your world is now ours. Those who surrender will be allowed to live as our servants. Those who resist will be eliminated. You have 1 hour to decide." The transmission ended. Davis felt sweat running down his face inside his helmet. He looked at the massive ship in front of him and realized that humanity was about to face its greatest test. Back on Earth, President Carter was making the hardest decision of her life. Around the world, other leaders were having the same conversation. Do they surrender and hope for mercy, or do they fight against impossible odds? Admiral Morrison made his own choice. He opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Morrison to all vessels. We did not come this far as a species to bow down to invaders. All ships prepare for combat. Today we show them what humans are made of." The hour was almost up. In space, the human fleet took position between Earth and the alien ships. On the ground, soldiers prepared their weapons and civilians hugged their families. Everyone knew that in minutes everything would change forever. The Draconian ships began to glow brighter. Their weapons were powering up. The hour was up. The Draconian ships moved like hunters circling their prey. Admiral Morrison watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the alien vessels spread out across Earth's sky. Each ship chose a target: New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Los Angeles, Chicago. All the great cities of the world were about to burn. "Fire all weapons," Morrison ordered. The human fleet opened fire first. Missiles streaked through space like shooting stars. Laser beams cut through the darkness. Railgun projectiles flew at incredible speeds toward the alien ships. For a moment, Morrison felt hope. Their weapons were hitting the targets. Then the alien shields flared to life. The missiles exploded harmlessly against barriers of pure energy. The lasers scattered like light hitting a mirror. The railgun rounds bounced off like pebbles thrown at a mountain. Not a single alien ship was even scratched. "Sir?" "They're returning." "Fire!" called out Lisa Bell. The Draconian weapons were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Beams of red energy lanced out from their ships. When they hit human vessels, the ships simply disappeared. Not exploded, not destroyed. They were just gone, turned into atoms floating in space. In 30 seconds, half the human fleet was wiped out. Lieutenant Commander Ben Taylor was on Guardian Station, an orbital defense platform above Earth. He had the best view of the disaster unfolding below. Through his telescope, he watched the first Draconian ship descend over Los Angeles. The alien vessel hovered a mile above the city like a dark cloud. Then it began to fire. Red beams carved through the downtown area. Skyscrapers fell like dominoes. The Hollywood sign melted into slag. The beaches turned to glass from the heat. But Taylor noticed something strange. The aliens were taking their time. They could have destroyed the entire city in minutes, but they were going slow. They were cutting the city apart piece by piece, almost like they were enjoying it. "They're playing with us," Taylor whispered, to himself. On the ground in Chicago, Marine Colonel Kate Murphy was leading evacuation efforts when the alien ship appeared overhead. She was helping load children onto buses when the first energy beam struck the Willis Tower. The massive building toppled over like a falling tree. "Everyone to the tunnels," Murphy shouted. "Move, move, move." As people ran for the subway entrances, Murphy heard a sound behind her. It was like metal scraping against stone, but deeper. She turned around and froze. A draconian warrior stood in the wreckage of a collapsed building. The creature was 8 feet tall and covered in black scales that gleamed like polished metal. Its eyes burned with golden fire. Claws like curved knives extended from its fingers. When it opened its mouth, Murphy saw rows of razor-sharp teeth. The alien looked at her and tilted its head like a curious cat. It could have killed her instantly, but instead it seemed to be studying her. Then it smiled, showing those terrible teeth. "Run, little human," it said in perfect English. "Run and hide. The hunt is more fun when the prey struggles." Murphy had been a Marine for 15 years. She had never run from a fight in her life. But something in those golden eyes told her this was not a battle she could win. She ran. The alien followed her, but slowly. It was in no hurry. When Murphy stumbled, it waited for her to get up. When she hid behind a car, it pretended not to see her for several seconds before casually walking around the vehicle. It was playing with her like a cat plays with a mouse. Dr. Sam Brooks was in his underground facility in Colorado when the reports started coming in. His job was to coordinate communications between the scattered human forces. What he heard made his blood run cold. The same story was coming from every major city. The aliens were not just destroying everything quickly. They were hunting humans for sport. They were herding people into groups and then picking them off one by one. They were making the survivors watch. They were enjoying every moment of terror they created. "It's not a war," Brooks said to his assistant. "It's entertainment for them." Captain Pete Davis was still in space, dodging alien fire with what remained of his squadron. Only 4 of his 12 fighters were left. The aliens could have destroyed them easily, but they seemed to prefer chasing the humans around like a game. "Captain, why aren't they just killing us?" asked Lieutenant Nancy Green over the radio. Davis watched as an alien fighter came up behind Lieutenant Bob Harris. The alien ship had multiple chances to shoot, but instead it just followed him through a series of turns and loops. Finally, when he died, Harris made a mistake and flew too close to an asteroid. The alien ship fired once and destroyed him. "Because they're having fun," Davis said grimly. Back on Earth, the devastation continued. London was burning. Tokyo was in ruins. Moscow had gone silent. Billions of people were dead or missing. The human military was scattered and broken. President Carter was in a bunker deep under Washington, D.C. The city above her was gone, destroyed in the first hour of the attack. Dr. Rodriguez was with her, along with a few dozen other survivors from the government. "How many are left?" the president asked. Rodriguez looked at her reports with tears in her eyes. "Maybe 2 billion worldwide, down from 8 billion this morning." "My God," Carter whispered. Admiral Morrison was also still alive, barely. The Defiance was damaged and limping toward the dark side of the moon. Most of his crew was dead. The proud human fleet was now just a handful of crippled ships running and hiding, but Morrison was a fighter. Even in defeat, he was planning. The aliens had shown their hand. They were not just conquerors. They were predators who enjoyed the hunt. That gave humanity something to work with. "Lisa, are our long-range communications still working?" he asked. "Yes, sir, barely." "Send a message to all surviving units. Tell them we're not beaten yet. Tell them we're going to study these creatures. We're going to learn how they think, and then we're going to use it against them." Morrison looked out at the burning Earth below. Somewhere down there, humans were still fighting, still surviving. The aliens thought they had won. They thought they were the perfect predators. They were about to learn that they had never hunted anything like humanity before. The Draconians had made their first mistake. They had let some humans live. In their arrogance and love of the hunt, they had given humanity time to think, to adapt, to become something new. The real war was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the invasion began. The Draconians believed they had won. They had built huge arenas in the ruins of major cities where they watched their warriors hunt the remaining humans. The aliens treated Earth like their personal playground. In what used to be Central Park in New York, the Draconians had constructed a massive hunting ground. They released groups of humans into a maze of broken buildings and twisted metal. Then they sent their warriors in to hunt them down while other aliens watched and cheered from elevated platforms. The Draconian war commander Thesakar stood on his viewing platform overlooking the latest hunt. He was larger than the other aliens, with golden scales instead of black ones. Scars covered his arms and face from countless battles across the galaxy. To him, humans were just another species to be broken for entertainment. "These creatures run well," he said to his aide, "but they break too easily. Perhaps we should find more challenging prey on another world." What Thesakar did not know was that deep underground, the surviving humans were not broken at all. They were learning. Dr. Amy Rodriguez worked by candlelight in a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of Chicago. She had been studying pieces of Draconian technology for months. Next to her, engineer Tony Clark examined a captured alien weapon with a magnifying glass. "Look at this," Rodriguez whispered, pointing to symbols carved into the weapon's grip. "These markings appear on all their equipment. I think it's how they identify rank and unit assignments." Clark nodded. His wife and children had died in the first attacks. Since then, he had devoted every waking moment to understanding the alien technology. "Their weapons are voice-activated," he said. "But not just any voice. They're keyed to specific individuals." This was important information. It meant the aliens were not as unified as they appeared. They had ranks, divisions, and individual identities. That created opportunities. Colonel Kate Murphy had survived her first encounter with a Draconian warrior 6 months ago. Since then, she had become one of the most effective resistance leaders on the planet. She moved through the underground, tunnels of Chicago like a ghost, organizing survivors and planning attacks. But Murphy was not planning the kind of attacks the aliens expected. She had studied their behavior carefully. The Draconians always followed the same patterns. They liked dramatic confrontations. They enjoyed chasing scared prey. They became bored with easy victories. "We're going to give them exactly what they want," Murphy told her team of 30 fighters, "but not the way they expect." Her plan was called the Terran Protocol. Instead of hiding from the aliens or trying to fight them directly, the humans would make themselves irresistible targets. They would appear weak and frightened, while actually being prepared and deadly. Admiral Morrison had spent the months rebuilding what remained of the human fleet. The Defiance was hidden on the dark side of the moon along with 15 other damaged ships. His chief engineer, Commander Rick Stone, had been working miracles with salvaged alien technology. "The key is not to copy their systems," Stone explained to Morrison. "It's to use them in ways they never thought of. Their technology is designed for straightforward warfare. Ours can be adapted for deception." Stone had discovered that human computers could interface with Draconian systems, but not in the way the aliens intended. Instead of controlling the technology directly, humans could feed it false information, redirect its sensors, and make it report things that were not really there. Dr. Sam Brooks coordinated the Global Resistance Network from his facility in Colorado. Over the months, he had established contact with survivor groups on every continent. What he learned gave him hope. "The aliens are getting frustrated," Brooks reported during a secret meeting with other resistance leaders. "Their warriors are starting to make mistakes. They're taking unnecessary risks because the hunts have become predictable." This was exactly what the humans had been waiting for. The Draconians' greatest strength was their methodical approach to conquest. But their need for entertainment was making them sloppy. The first test of the Terran Protocol took place in the ruins of London. Colonel Murphy had traveled there to coordinate with the local resistance leader, Captain Steve Johnson. Together, they staged what appeared to be a desperate evacuation. 200 survivors gathered in the open ruins of Trafalgar Square, seemingly trying to escape through the subway tunnels. The Draconian hunting party spotted them immediately and moved in for what they expected to be an easy hunt. But the humans were not really evacuating. They were positioning themselves. When the aliens entered the square, they found themselves surrounded by fighters hidden in every building, every tunnel entrance, every pile of rubble. The hunters had become the hunted. The battle lasted only minutes. When it was over, 12 Draconian warriors were dead and their equipment was in human hands. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had won a real victory. Captain Pete Davis had been flying hit-and-run missions for months with the handful of surviving pilots. But now, with Commander Stone's modifications to their ships, they could do something new. They could make the aliens see things that were not there. Davis led his squadron of 6 fighters against a Draconian patrol near Mars. But on the alien sensors, it looked like 30 human ships were attacking. The confused aliens divided their forces to meet multiple threats that did not exist. Davis's real fighters struck where the enemy was weakest and escaped before they could respond. Dr. Rodriguez made another breakthrough in her underground laboratory. She discovered that the draconian neural interfaces that connected their warriors to their ships could be hacked, not through superior programming, but through psychological manipulation. Their brains work differently than ours, she explained, to Tony Clark. They think in terms of dominance and submission. If we can make them believe they are losing control, their own technology will turn against them. This information spread through the resistance network. Humans began broadcasting signals that confused the alien warriors' connection to their ships and weapons. Some aliens became so disoriented that they attacked their own forces. The changes were small at first. A missing patrol here, a confused report there, equipment that stopped working properly. But gradually, the Draconians began to realize that something was wrong. Reports started reaching the alien command ships. Their hunting parties were encountering more organized resistance. Human prey was fighting back with captured alien weapons. Some warriors were disappearing entirely, their fate unknown. For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Draconians were beginning to feel something they had never experienced before. Doubt. War Commander Thissakar studied the reports with growing anger. These pathetic humans were supposed to be broken by now. Instead, they seemed to be getting stronger and more organized. It was unacceptable. Send more hunting parties, he ordered. Increase the pressure. We will teach these creatures what happens when they resist the Draconian Empire. But what Thissakar did not understand was that this was exactly what the humans wanted him to do. Every hunter he sent gave them more opportunities to study alien tactics, capture their equipment, and turn their own strengths against them. The real war was finally beginning. War Commander Thissakar stood in the command center of his flagship, staring at reports that made no sense. 3 more hunting parties had vanished in the past week. Not killed in battle, but simply gone without a trace. Their ships were found, empty, drifting in space. The warriors inside had disappeared. Find them, Thissakar growled at his subordinates. Find these missing hunters and bring me answers. But the answers would not come from his own forces. Deep in the ruins of what used to be Seattle, Colonel Kate Murphy crouched beside the unconscious form of a Draconian warrior. Her team had used Dr. Rodriguez's psychological warfare techniques to confuse the alien's neural interface until he passed out. Strip him of all equipment, Murphy ordered quietly. Then drug him and leave him where his friends will find him. But make sure the drugs cause hallucinations first. This was the new human strategy. They did not just kill alien warriors anymore. They captured them, studied them, and then returned them in a state of confusion and fear. The rescued aliens told wild stories of invisible enemies and impossible attacks. Other Draconians began to doubt their own senses. Captain Pete Davis was having the time of his life. His fighter squadron now had 20 ships, all equipped with the latest modifications from Commander Stone. They could appear on enemy sensors as anything they wanted. Today they were pretending to be a flock of space debris. Remember, Davis told his pilots over the radio, we want them to chase us, lead them into the asteroid field, then vanish. Let them wonder where we went. The Draconian patrol took the bait perfectly. 6 alien fighters followed what they thought were fleeing human ships into a maze of floating rocks. But once inside the field, the human ships disappeared from their sensors completely. The aliens found themselves alone, surrounded by asteroids and shadows. Then the attacks began. Human fighters appeared from nowhere, fired once, and vanished again. The Draconian pilots spun their ships in circles, shooting at targets that were no longer there. Within minutes, half their squadron was destroyed by an enemy they could barely see. Dr. Amy Rodriguez had made her greatest breakthrough yet. Working with captured alien technology, she had learned to hack into the Draconian communication networks. But instead of just listening to their messages, she could now send false ones. "Tony, look at this," she said to Engineer Clark. "I can make their own command ship tell them to retreat. Or I can send fake distress calls that lead them into traps. Their whole communication system is now working for us." Clark smiled for the first time since his family died. "Let me guess. You want to tell their warriors that there are human survivors hiding in places where we actually have ambush teams waiting." "Exactly," Rodriguez replied. "And the beautiful part is the orders will come from their own commanders. They will never suspect the messages are fake." The psychological warfare was working better than anyone had hoped. Draconian warriors began reporting encounters with humans who seemed to appear and disappear at will. Some claimed they were being stalked by invisible enemies. Others insisted that human fighters could phase through solid matter. Admiral Morrison received these reports with grim satisfaction. The Defiance and her sister ships were still hidden behind the moon, but they were no longer just hiding. They were preparing for the final phase of humanity's counterattack. "Commander Stone, how are the modifications coming?" Morrison asked. "Better than expected, sir," Stone replied. "We have turned every human ship into a stealth vessel. But more than that, we can now make the aliens see entire fleets that do not exist. When we are ready to attack, they will not know what is real and what is illusion." The tipping point came when a full Draconian battle group disappeared near Jupiter. 50 ships with over 5,000 warriors simply vanished without sending a distress signal. Search parties found no wreckage, no bodies, no trace of what had happened. The truth was simpler than the aliens could imagine. Captain Davis and his expanded fighter wing had used a combination of stealth technology and psychological warfare to convince the battle group that they were under attack by a massive human fleet. In their panic, the Draconians had fired on each other. The few survivors fled in terror, leaving their ships behind. Dr. Sam Brooks coordinated the final preparations from his command center in Colorado. The Global Resistance Network now included over 1 million fighters on every continent. They had captured enough alien equipment to arm small armies. More importantly, they had learned to think like their enemies. "The aliens are making a fatal mistake," Brooks explained during a final briefing with resistance leaders worldwide. "They are sending more hunters because they think force will solve their problem. But every hunter they send gives us more opportunities to turn their own tactics against them." Colonel Murphy's teams had perfected the art of psychological warfare. They left messages written in the aliens' own language in places where hunting parties would find them. The messages were simple. "We are watching you. You cannot hide from us. Your turn to run." The effect on Draconian morale was devastating. Warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds were now jumping at shadows. Some refused to hunt alone. Others demanded to return to their ships. A few had nervous breakdowns and had to be sedated by their own medical teams. War Commander Thysakar was growing desperate. His reports to the Draconian High Command were becoming increasingly difficult to explain. How could a primitive species that had been nearly extinct 6 months ago now be terrorizing his forces? "Send a message to the home fleet," Thysakar finally decided. "Tell them we need reinforcements. Tell them these humans are not normal prey." But the message never reached the Draconian home world. Dr. Rodriguez intercepted it and replaced it with a different one. The message that was actually sent reported that the conquest of Earth was proceeding perfectly, and no additional forces were needed. The trap was nearly complete. The Draconians on Earth were isolated, confused, and demoralized. They had no idea that help was not coming. They had no idea that every move they made was being predicted and countered by an enemy that had learned to think exactly like them. Captain Davis received his final orders from Admiral Morrison. "It's time, Pete. Tomorrow we reveal ourselves. Tomorrow we show them what humans are really capable of." Davis looked out at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, The Draconians still believed they were the perfect predators. Tomorrow, they would learn the truth. The hunters had become the hunted, and the humans were just getting started. The final battle began at dawn on a Tuesday morning. War Commander Thusakar had made his last desperate decision. Unable to contact the home fleet and facing growing losses, he called every remaining Draconian ship to Earth for one massive attack. Over 2,000 vessels gathered in Earth's orbit, the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. "We will end this pathetic resistance once and for all," Thusakar announced to his commanders. "Every human on this planet will die today. No more games, no more hunting for sport, complete extermination." What Thusakar did not know was that this was exactly what the humans wanted him to do. Every move he made had been predicted months in advance. The trap was finally ready to close. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the massive alien fleet through his sensors. Around him, the human fleet had grown to over 300 ships, all rebuilt with hybrid human-draconian technology. But numbers were not the real weapon. The real weapon was knowledge. "All ships, begin Phase 1, Morrison ordered calmly. "Remember, we are not trying to outfight them. We are going to outthink them." Across the globe, Dr. Sam Brooks activated the final stage of the resistance plan. Every surviving human on Earth began moving at the same time. To Draconian sensors, it looked like a massive panic. Millions of people appeared to be fleeing toward specific locations: cities, mountains, islands. Everywhere the aliens looked, they saw irresistible targets. "Sir, the humans are running," reported Thusakar's aide. "They are gathering in large groups. Perfect for mass elimination." Thusakar smiled with his razor-sharp teeth. "Divide the fleet. Attack every concentration of humans simultaneously. Leave none alive." This was the aliens' fatal mistake. By spreading their massive fleet across the entire planet, they had broken their greatest advantage. No single group of Draconian ships would be strong enough to handle what was coming. Colonel Kate Murphy crouched in the ruins of Chicago, watching alien ships descend toward what appeared to be a refugee camp. 10,000 humans seemed to be gathered in the open, defenseless and terrified. The Draconian warriors landed confidently, expecting an easy slaughter. Instead, they found themselves in a killing field. The refugees were actually soldiers in disguise. The camp was surrounded by hidden weapons. The moment the aliens stepped out of their ships, humanity's trap snapped shut. "Fire," Murphy whispered into her radio. Captured alien weapons opened fire from every direction. The Draconian warriors found themselves caught in crossfire from their own technology. Their shields meant nothing because the weapons firing at them were designed to penetrate those exact defenses. The same scene played out in hundreds of locations around the world. Every refugee camp was actually a military unit. Every desperate stronghold was a carefully prepared ambush. The fleeing humans were leading the aliens exactly where they wanted them to go. Captain Pete Davis led the space battle that destroyed the Draconian command structure. His fighters appeared to be everywhere, at once, thanks to Commander Stone's sensor jamming technology. The alien fleet found itself shooting at targets that did not exist while the real human ships struck from unexpected directions. "Nancy, take your squadron and hit their communication ship," Davis ordered Lieutenant Green. "Bob, you handle their supply vessels. I'm going after Thusakar himself." The Draconian war commander watched his perfect plan fall apart in real time. His ships were scattered across the planet, cut off from each other and facing coordinated attacks. His warriors were calling for help, but no help was coming. The humans were fighting like they knew exactly what the aliens would do. "How is this possible?" Thusakar roared. "These creatures are supposed to be primitives." His answer came from Dr. Amy Rodriguez, broadcasting directly to his ship using captured communication equipment. "We learned from you," her voice said calmly. "We studied your tactics, your technology, your psychology. We became better hunters than you ever were." Rodriguez was in her underground laboratory, coordinating the technological warfare that was crippling the alien fleet. Every Draconian ship was receiving false sensor data, fake orders, and computer viruses designed specifically for their systems. Their own technology was turning against them. Engineer Tony Clark watched his revenge unfold on the screens around him. The aliens who had killed his family were dying by the thousands, destroyed by weapons they themselves had created. "This is for Sarah and the kids," he whispered. The climax came when Admiral Morrison's fleet revealed itself from behind the moon. The Draconians expected to face a few dozen primitive human ships. Instead, they found themselves confronting a fleet that looked and fought exactly like their own, but with one crucial difference. The humans were unpredictable. Draconian tactical computers could not process human creativity. When the aliens expected the human fleet to retreat, it attacked. When they expected a frontal assault, the humans vanished and struck from behind. Every standard Draconian response was met with something they had never encountered before. War Commander Thisakar made his final desperate move. He brought his personal ship down to Earth's surface, determined to kill as many humans as possible, before he died. He landed in the ruins of New York, where Colonel Murphy was waiting for him. The two greatest warriors of their respective species faced each other in the wreckage of Central Park. Thisakar was 8 feet tall, covered in golden scales, armed with weapons that could level buildings. Murphy was a 5'6" human with captured alien gear and 6 months of pure hatred. The fight lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, the war commander of the Draconian Empire lay dead in the grass, killed by the species he had considered inferior. By sunset, it was over. Every Draconian ship had been destroyed or captured. Every alien warrior was dead. Not a single enemy had escaped to carry word back to their empire. The hunting species that had terrorized 47 worlds had been completely annihilated by their intended prey. Dr. Brooks sent the final report to all resistance cells worldwide. Operation complete. All enemy forces eliminated. No survivors. The title of humanity's victory had become literally true. The Draconians had invaded Earth, and none had survived to tell the tale. The galaxy would never know what had happened to the mighty hunting fleet. They had simply vanished. Admiral Morrison stood in the ruins of Washington, D.C., looking up at the stars. Humanity now possessed advanced alien technology, a unified world government, and something more dangerous than any weapon. They had proven they could defeat anyone who underestimated them. "Sir," asked Lisa Bell, "what do we do now?" Morrison smiled. "Now we build starships. Somewhere out there, 47 worlds are waiting for liberation. The hunt continues, but this time, we are the hunters. The war was over. Humanity had won."